You need to make at least, you have to have the ability to throw the ball down 10 yards at a time. You have to extend plays because you are going against a defense who has completely shut down every rushing team that has ever played.
Welcome to the official podcast of FCS Fans Nation with your hosts Kylor Neal, Matthew Frazee, and Jamie Williams.
FCS Fans Nation, up way too close near the cold northern Canadian border sits two states which should be one, split at the border back in the day by beautiful towering rocks to know which Dakota territory you are in. Well, Texas this weekend will be the home of the new Mega Dakota because the SDSU Jackrabbits, the North Dakota State Bison, are heading down I-29. And ladies and gentlemen, Frisco, you are tuning in to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Tonight, a duo, Mr. Kylor Neal, myself, Matthew Frazee, the OGs. Geez, we just need Wyatt and Lawrence and one or two others in here.
And a few dogs.
That's barking in the background, a few screen doors slamming.
Cell phones.
That's it.
Oh, yeah.
We've improved greatly here in season 6. And thank you so much for listening and joining us this morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you are. We're a little late on this episode as real life has affected us. Real life taking some impacts on Jamie Williams. Nothing negative, just really busy with the New Year's. He might be popping in at the end of the episode. If not, Kylor and I are here to break down the Frisco matchup that people have thought could be the matchup for a long time. And Kylor, it's finally the Dakota marker, if you will, down in Frisco. You've been excited about this, I think, more than I have been. And are you ready for it, dude?
I'm trying to experience it. Yeah. I think ever since that original game when you guys played in the regular season has kind of been when I've said, I think it's going to be a Dakota marker ever since down here in Frisco. If SDSU lost and then they had to go on the road, I didn't have as much faith in them that they'd maybe get through some of the other, top tier teams traveling. But once they beat you guys and the rest of the valley was kind of a little bit down, I went, smooth sailing. They're going to win it out. They're going to get the 1 seed. No one's beating them in Brookings this year. I'm pretty excited to go see this Dakota marker. See if the hype is, if everything lives up to the hype. I mean, you got these giant men that drink milk for like midnight. I mean, I feel like they chase their shots with milk. That's those South Dakota boys. It makes no sense how big all these Dakota people are. So I'm gonna feel a little bit like a dwarf, but it is fine. It'll be a good time. Yeah, I'm excited, man.
It's going to be great. We'll have some extra details at the end of this episode on what our plans may be for Frisco, tailgate, and such. But we do have some amazing fan questions, Kylor, as we always do. And these folks are really excited, whether they are Bison and Jackrabbit fans or not, to see this matchup. So since it's a big matchup, let's start with the Big 7.
The top 7 FCS topics of the week. This is the Big 7.
Mr. Neal, we start with one of our longtime fans, Mr. Cody Wertlinger. And this is just where you got to start. This whole slate of the Big 7, of course, is around the national championship. But Mr. Cody Wertlinger asks, the game will be won in the trenches. Which team has the advantage, if any? Also, if this game comes down to special teams, a field goal perhaps, who has the advantage there? So let me just start with the special teams thing. I just looked up the statistics. I knew both teams were solid in the kicking game. I knew they each had a kicker that was either junior or senior. They both, in fact, happen to be juniors. And when you look at South Dakota State's kicker, you're looking at Hunter Dustman. And as a junior, he's kicked 14 of 17, and he has 24 field goal attempts. So, or the extra points. So 14 of 17, not too bad. And then Griffin Crosa, who is the smallest human you will ever see step onto a collegiate football field in terms of frame. Like, just wait till you see him.
Okay, I was like, do you remember our quarterback this year? He's 5'9".
Wait till you see Griffin Crosa. It's amazing. He has the most badass sleeve tattoos you'll ever see. It looks like he's coming out like he was a sniper in the Marine Corps, but lost
Nice.
all the weight like
Yeah.
a few years after his service. But Griffin Crosa is 10 of 11 on the season, long of 47. So in the kicking department, Cody, you are probably looking at kickers, if they're anywhere from that 25 to 35 range or even closer, you should feel pretty comfortable that these guys are going to make a field goal. So I don't know if somebody has a particular edge because he had a few more field goals in South Dakota State, but it's going to be pretty close. Mr. Neal, I'm curious your perspective of the trenches this year, as you have spoken praises and had some negatives on both sides of the ball. What do you think when these two line up?
I mean, it's weird talking about this year because I think I know how most of the conversations are going to go in this episode. And I think it's going to be a lot of praising SDSU for their physicality, for their size, for their trench work. You know, that offensive and defensive line is pretty impressive, where if you ask me any other year, NDSU has the advantage. They're going to be able to still bully someone. But they have struggled with containing some of the run. I mean, we did see Incarnate Word, who, let's not downplay their line play. I think Incarnate Word's line play was actually severely underrated from what most people were thinking. But I mean, we saw NDSU struggle a little bit, still prevailed, still won. But yeah, I think I have to go with the edges to South Dakota State. I don't know the sizes, but I mean, we've been talking about like Montana State being super undersized all year, and you could see it. You know, they ran through everyone until they finally played that giant line where that's where it showcased they were undersized. SDSU is huge. Yeah. And I mean, I would say this is probably the more equal advantage about the game. I don't think any of these lines are going to break on either side. But if I had to just pick one on who I would trust a little bit more, I think I got to go with South Dakota State. Their defensive line is by far the best in the FCS this year, in my opinion. They contain everyone. You really have to throw it over them to really get down the field. And then offensively, I mean, I think both teams protect their quarterback pretty well. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's my curiosities really come into, I'm going to just keep referencing back to that Fargo game because you had a tale of two halves.
Yeah.
And then a weird pre-halftime moment for like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But the tale of two halves tells you exactly how both fan bases think they're going to win.
Right.
And I was so interested. It was so interesting in that first half of that football game, me texting with Thumper and the SDSU guys being like, you guys should block Spencer Wagee. You should stop our D tackles from gutting you in the middle. NDSU's defensive line swarmed South Dakota State in that first half in the Dome. And SDSU had some mental errors and when they were having some offsides calls, and it's tough in the Dome. But that was it looked like a clear mismatch, and then it just stopped.
Yeah, then the second half was complete opposite, complete shutdown. You couldn't move the ball. You couldn't stop anything. It was impressive.
But to your point as well, when it comes to the trenches, you have to adapt on each side.
Yeah.
Where North Dakota State, they're more vulnerable in that run game. They've improved, and they might have some health with both Mozart twins here in Frisco. But SDSU was still able to gut the middle of them a little bit and enough to get points back on the boarding and back into the game. Where North Dakota State, on the flip side, once SDSU was able to key in that second half and just get to start playing their style of defensive ball, NDSU didn't move the ball and couldn't move the ball.
Yeah.
So you would say the edge probably has to go to the Jackrabbits because you could see some vulnerability in the middle for NDSU. But with the growing depth over the whole season, maybe some health, maybe it looks a little different. So,
and I don't even know if we can really just say, yeah, that's just South Dakota State's lines being slightly better. That to me, when the halves are that different, I do think that's kind of the coaching adjustments. There were some things that, Stig saw over there saying, hey, we need to do this a little bit better. And I think we can shut them down. And that's those second half adjustments. I mean, you were just talking about it. It was a completely night and day first half from second half. And I think, the coaching plays more into that part over maybe the lines, because I do think they're evenly balanced. I mean, that was a game NDSU could have won. It was a game South Dakota State could win. This is a very balanced, even match team between two rivals. And throughout the last 10 plus years for North Dakota State, and maybe the last 5 years for South Dakota State, they've relied heavily on the line play. I mean, these trenches are outside of James Madison that we've seen in the last few years. These are the best lines that we have seen at least the last 5+ from both teams. And I don't think there's a clear cut third. And I think third is pretty far behind.
Yeah, Montana State was praised obviously for the run game and their ability to control the line of scrimmage. And just like you said, man, you could see it on the TV. You could see the size difference. You were like, wow, this is not the same thing.
And we said they were going to be undersized, but they were figuring out ways to make it happen.
Right.
Then when you see a defense that's coached extremely well, plus they have that size and physicality, you're like, oh yeah, this isn't going to be pretty. And that's why I picked South Dakota State in that matchup. I mean, I don't see it.
Yep. Well, and well picked the game, of course, as I was way off on that one. There's going to be some great play by individual players as well down in Frisco, of course. Eric Larson has a question for us, Kylor. Wants to know, give me one X factor that comes out of this game, an MVP of the game that is not on many people's lists. Eric, I took some time to really think about this question, and I thought of two individuals, and I wanted to start with South Dakota State's backup running back. I guess you could say they do kind of a rotation, but it's kind of insulting at this point of the season, in my opinion, to say that South Dakota State is the Isaiah Davis show in the backfield, because Pierre Strong's gone. So people who haven't paid a lot of attention, the guy who really, and honestly, he popped on the scene really a lot against North Dakota State is Amar Johnson. This is a sophomore running back. He's number 3. So if you see him zipping around the field, seems like a really quick, talented player. Scored his first touchdown on North Dakota State and ran for 89 yards on 12 carries. Then had a touchdown the next 3 games. So touchdown. And, of course, this is rotating with Isaiah Davis, who's taken the bulk of the carries. But in the playoffs, he's had touchdowns in 2 of the last 3 games, went for 69 yards against Montana State in a game that was a big blowout. So this is a guy that I would say is, if SDSU wins and they end up similar to beating NDSU early in the season, and they have 3 rushing touchdowns on the ground, one of them, or maybe 2, could have been set up by Amar Johnson breaking a big run. He is shifty. He's quick through the lines. So I think that could be one of your MVP X factors. Not an MVP, but he's going to be an X factor here. I'm not predicting him to win the MVP. And then on NDSU side of the ball, you need a guy who would have been stepping up throughout the season on that defensive line. And that's a redshirt freshman. It's a defensive tackle, number 64. You would think it's an old lineman when you see him. But Jackson Dutton Heifer from Mandan High School, this guy has just been stepping up. He's been big as the Mozart twin when we lost Will went out. Will or Eli, sorry, I always get them mixed up because they're the same. Jackson has played really, really well in that defensive line. He's going to be part of that depth that's going to have to contain that interior run for South Dakota State if NDSU is going to come away and win. So those are 2 guys I think that kind of rose throughout the season and are big X factors in this matchup. Defensive line versus running back.
Right.
So you have some names out there, Kylor, when you look across these rosters?
Well, I'm going to play this question a little different. So these are the 2 players that need to basically become X factors in this game. They are the players that need to take it over if their team has a shot to win. So, I mean, you've already mentioned Isaiah Davis. I mean, everyone in the country knows who Isaiah Davis is. This is the first year, at least in the title run era of NDSU, where their run defense has been suspect multiple times in the year. So, I mean, normally they have a top 3 to 5 statistical speaking run defense, and it shows when they play the best teams too. They don't. I mean, this is that first year where they have seen some issues on the defensive line. They have given up big runs. So I think Isaiah Davis really needs to kind of get big chop plays, maybe on those first downs. If you can get 4 or 5 yards every first down or something like that, it's going to set up for Gronowski to kind of open up the playbook and be a little more versatile, which is going to be amazing for SDSU. So I think Isaiah Davis really needs to push through that defensive line. He needs to be the X factor for SDSU, and he has kind of been one of the X factors all year. Now, on the flip side, this player on North Dakota State, he's been an X factor in his career. He has had some glimpses of greatness even this year, but it seems like everyone is saying this is the worst quarterback known to man. And it is just not true. He had a really bad game last week. He maybe had 2 really bad games all season. Most of it's been average to a game manager, but it hasn't looked like the quarterbacks of the past NDSU, but Miller. So this Miller, I don't think, can have another one completion type of game to beat South Dakota State. This is one of those times where he needs to actually be the quarterback that we've seen throughout all of the years of NDSU. He doesn't need to be as physically talented as Trey Lance. He doesn't need to be as physically talented as Carson Wentz, but he needs to be a little bit more of a game manager like Brock Jensen. He needs to actually have a little bit of Easton Stick in him where, you don't need to take over the game completely, but you need to be smart. You need to make, at least you have to have the ability to throw the ball down 10 yards at a time. You have to extend plays because you are going against a defense who has completely shut down every rushing team that has ever played. We saw North Dakota State play him in the earlier season with Lipke. Shut him down pretty much, right? I mean,
yep.
It was a really tough defensive line to go against. So this is one of those things you just can't rely on NDSU's rushing attack like what we've seen throughout all of these last 12 years. This is something where Miller has to actually make the plays happen. He has to put the ball in his hand. You have to extend the field. You need to develop that playbook. So that is who is going to be, if you want to win, that has to be the X factor of the game.
Yeah, and with Cam Miller, it's, of course, the Incarnate Word game, terrible performance.
Throw it out.
Awful performance, right?
It was so bad. But, I mean, like I just said, he's maybe had – that was the worst performance I've ever seen. But he's maybe had, like, 2 bad passing games. The rest are just it was a pretty solid game. Like, it wasn't anything that you're saying he is the worst quarterback known to man, like what everyone is saying online last week or when they played Incarnate Word a few weeks back.
Right.
But, yeah.
And when you look at Cam Miller in his last 2 matchups as a starter, in the spring he split with Quincy Patterson, but as a starter in 2021 when they played in November, the fall season, he was 15 of 23 against SDSU, 218 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception.
Solid.
And then when he played against them this year, 17 for 22, 227 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions.
And I think the ball fairly well.
Yeah, ran the ball okay. I think where people kind of give him a lot of ding comparison to others is like NDSU could have won that game against SDSU if they gotten into field goal range with like 2 minutes left, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, is Miller going to get that team down the field? And I think that's where people go, no, I'm not concerned or worried about it. Where with Wentz and Lance and others, they were like, oh boy, okay, here comes the pressure time. So it's great picks, man. Speaking of picks, I shouldn't say picks because you're not passing the ball much maybe in this game. Kevin Maydall wants to know, can South Dakota State's defense perform as well against the run as it did versus Malott and Montana State? So this one is interesting. Kylor, what does your gut tell you about is NDSU going to run better or worse? They were under 150 yards last time they played. What do you think in this Frisco matchup? I'm starting to get some weird sense, just like I did with James Madison NDSU. It was 2019. And I said with that, everyone was talking about the defenses. It was so much about the defense. And I thought to myself, I'm starting to think the offenses might just show up more than people realize. Right. What do you think?
Well, I definitely don't think SDSU's defense is going to look the exact same way that they did against Montana State. The main reason why I say this is I still think even though SDSU's passing offense has looked, or NDSU's passing offense has looked horrendous for parts of the year, they are still a much more dynamic offensive system than Montana State in actually throwing the ball. Montana State, if you can shut down their run, they're not throwing the ball, especially in those weather elements. So SDSU just said, all right, we're going to blow through your line and try and run to the outside on us. It's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to throw very well. And that's kind of what happened. So, I mean, surprisingly, Tommy threw way better than what they were running because they shut down the run completely. Now, I do think Montana State is a little bit this year because of how banged up NDSU is, a little bit better of a rushing offense, but they don't have the lines like NDSU does. So I do think SDSU by far has the best run defense. I think NDSU is actually going to run a little bit better on South Dakota State than Montana State did because hopefully Cam Miller can actually develop some plays, open up those run lanes where, again, SDSU just said, try and beat us throwing the ball, because we're just going to continue to stop the run every single time because we don't have faith that you can beat us throwing the ball. Where I think they are a little bit more nervous about NDSU and their play style and their play calling, going, listen, if we shut down the run, you may still be able to throw it on us. You may be at least able to drive down the field. And I think they're more afraid of your defense too, if that makes sense.
For sure. Yep. Absolutely. And I think that when it comes to North Dakota State, that the coaching with NDSU, they are going to use opportunistic moments when they get their mismatches with their smoke and mirrors motions to allow Cam Miller to pop a ball right into a 15-yard window where the wideout is wide open. Now, it doesn't happen consistently, but they're very opportunistic with their passing game. And I think Montana State, and boy, that game just didn't start well from the beginning.
No, and
it was really bad right off the bat. And you're looking at the stats here if you're looking on YouTube. I mean, Montana State rushed for a total. Did they even get 50 yards if I'm doing quick math? They just got like 51, 52 yards, maybe. I mean, there's no way North Dakota State's going to be held to, in my opinion, under 100 rushing yards.
Nope, I don't think so. No. Well, I think Miller alone is probably going to have a big run that breaks out for, 15, 20 yards on any given play. But again, I do think North Dakota State just has a much better offensive line that is actually bigger and matches up better with South Dakota State than Montana State does. I mean, South Dakota State, again, was the best rush defense all year. And they were playing a hybrid of a triple option team, not true triple option. It's not an option it's an option team that throws the ball quite a bit more.
Yep.
But again, if you're playing against the number one rushing defense, that triple option typically isn't going to work very well. So
no,
you got to be a little more dynamic in your play calling.
It felt like a triple option game.
It did.
It felt like a triple option team going up against a true pro style offense and defense.
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting to see, but it's going to be interesting to see how those lines match up again.
Do you have? Frisco. I didn't even look up to talk about. Do you have like a number on what you think NDSU rushes for?
I think whether NDSU wins or loses, I think they're going to go for roughly about what they did in Fargo.
So I think 150
somewhere, but yeah, they were just under 150. So I'd say 160 rushing yard range. Like, I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. So
I think it'll be closer to 120, 125 in that range.
Yep. But they passed for 200 plus yards.
Right. Yeah. So, I think that's the way you're going to have to try and beat South Dakota State. You got to open up that field.
Absolutely. It'll be fun to see. Speaking of trying to beat South Dakota State, Mitch Fargan. Mitch, you are the star of the show tonight, man. You had some amazing questions. Your name will be brought up quite a bit. With North Dakota State getting healthy defensively and having built depth, what's the keys to stopping South Dakota State's offense? So we'll see. The depth has looked better for NDSU. A lot of youth has had to play, especially in that middle of the defensive line. Be interesting to see if they are back at full health, how much more of a strength that is.
Yeah.
But the key to stopping South Dakota State's offense is it's not much more different than NDSU overall. Now, NDSU, I think, is a much more effective passing offense, but you just have to not allow them to have a 6-minute drive. You cannot allow them to have the easy 4 to 5 yard run that guts you right up the middle. You're at South Dakota State with Kraft and their weapons on the outside. They're going to get their passing opportunities, but you can't have one that allows a receiver to break down the field for 35 yards. And then SDSU, when they're in that moment, they're not like North Dakota State. They don't go slowly, get to the line. They will go quick and get up there, and they'll run the next play for hand the ball off, and they'll get 4 yards again. So you have to almost like adapt to their flow and just be able to throw them off a bit. NDSU did that really well in the first half. They've done it to the Jackrabbits in the past. They got pressure on Gronowski. They forced a few key mental errors. SDSU couldn't get into that rhythm. When you see that rhythm of that Rabbit offense where it's pass and run, it is really sexy to watch. You're just like, oh, crap. 6-yard pass, 7-yard button hook, 4-yard run, 3-yard run, 10-yard pass. And you're just like, man, you don't know what's going to come next. So you have to, the way they say North Dakota State's run has to be stopped. You have to stop the run. You have to kill the rhythm of the balance of the Rabbits. And you really on that first and second down is going to be super, super key. Kylor, you watched that first game. We messaged about how NDSU was murdering them, and then it all changed. What makes you think NDSU could have a better shot, or what are the keys to them stopping these guys?
The keys to them stopping them is injure them early. No, please don't do that.
Yeah, we can't talk injuries for Frisco because we keep losing quarterbacks down there because of the damn turf.
I mean, I have a lot of faith when I've watched NDSU throughout this year. I have a lot of faith in their DBs. I have a lot of faith in their secondary. I don't have a lot of faith this year in their, actual front seven, which is weird because they're still an elite front seven. It's night and day compared to what it used to be. I think normally the secondary was the weakness for the main part, and the front seven was kind of the elite aspect of it. So the key, in my opinion, to try and even stop SDSU right now is that front seven needs to improve. You need to hit that line. You need to close every single gap and make Davis really struggle. If Davis is struggling, well, I don't know, because SDSU's offensive weapons are so good with the Yankee twins, with Kraft and Gronowski, who's been a stud.
But it does have to flow. SDSU,
it has to flow for sure.
They're not going to start just passing because they can't run. They do have a flow to themselves that could get thrown off, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think every team does in a sense. But yeah, I mean, I really think the key to this,
Kylor, you kind of just said it there. If you can make Isaiah Davis's day terrible, the run game terrible, then you force you might make SDSU to have to go into the heart of your defense, which is the secondary this year.
Right.
So, all right, now Gronowski, now you got to face off against a very talented senior secondary. And he was very effective. Gronowski, I speak high praises of him. Yeah. But he didn't even throw a touchdown pass in the first matchup. He was just an effective 16 of 21 passer.
He's a perfect game manager.
150 yards. Yep. And that's all you need to do to win. But could you force him to make the throws that people say we need to force Miller to do?
For sure.
And I do think Gronowski is a better quarterback right now than Cam Miller. But you could make that same argument. Both teams got to stop the run, right?
Yeah.
You got to stop the run.
I mean, do you have the stats off? Like Davis, he ran all over NDSU the first game, right? Wasn't it 150 yards or close to just by himself?
It wasn't as brutal as most people remember, but I mean, they definitely ran in comparison.
He was definitely the best running back on the field that game.
He ran. Sure. Yep. Him and Amar Johnson ran all over NDSU. Combined, Amar Johnson ran 12 yards for 89 yards. That's a 7.5 average. And then Isaiah Davis, 14 carries for 114 yards. 8.1 average.
So not as bad as the 140, 150 that I thought that I remember, but okay.
Nope. Gronowski actually carried the ball 9 times for 2 yards. So, and I don't know.
And that's more just scrambling. Yeah. Just trying to extend the play.
Right.
But yeah, I really do think NDSU, the good news is they have 3 weeks of prep. Who is prep better than NDSU this decade? Probably no one. But yeah, you really got to get in Isaiah Davis's face. You really got to make the line start second guessing themselves. And yeah, Gronowski, like you just said, he's efficient. He's been a stud. He's been a gamer. But we haven't really seen him outside of maybe in the UNI game, where he kind of looked a little bit suspect in some plays, right? Where he's trying to force some things because maybe the run game isn't working or maybe the defense isn't doing what they're supposed to. Yeah, you got to make him a little bit uncomfortable. So yeah, stuff that line. Try and stop the run if you can. And force him to throw against NDSU's real current strengths on the defense this year, which I do believe they have the best secondary in the FCS.
It is going to be a fun to watch. And sometimes people don't like defensive football, but we might see it here. And we just talked about defense. Why not keep it going? Zachary Carlton with a question here. Could this be the lowest scoring national championship since 2017? Don't mean that in a bad way. Just a great defenses and less than explosive offenses. Zachary Carlton wants to know. That was that James Madison 17-13 crazy finale all the way down to the end. Good thing Jamie's not here. He'd be throwing his trucker headset. I'm getting the feeling things could score a little bit more. Or are you thinking we saw 23-21 last time? Is that probably where we're going to be aiming? That'd be just under what Vegas thinks at 47.5.
I think it's going to be in the 20s and 20s. Maybe a 27, 24, 27, 21, 24, maybe 17 worst case scenario. I think each one of these teams is going to find the end zone a few times. Definitely a defensive battle, but there's going to be opportunities for them to score. Even if it's just one big breakup play every few drives, that is kind of, we've seen NDSU do from time to time. But yeah, I mean, 27, 24. I'm not going to say who I think is going to win. But I think it's going to be about similar to what we saw the first time.
Yeah, I just think the thing with North Dakota State, South Dakota State is there's a few things I've seen on Twitter and social media where I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about or you're just way too biased. Number one is people are like, oh man, just looking at this matchup, I think Jack's by 20. Okay, you just don't watch these two teams play each other then. Or if you say, well, North Dakota State is just the fact that they've never lost there and they always win in the big moment is why they're going to win. Okay, well, that doesn't equate to the 14, could be 14-1 South Dakota State, best team in the FCS, Jackrabbits in 2022, now 23. That's not the same exact thing. So when people talk about like these two defenses are just going to slam into each other and it's going to be really low scoring, I don't know if I buy that, Zachary. I just think that the offenses are good enough and they know each other and can game plan around each other well enough to where one team's at least going to get to 20 and one team's going to be just right behind them. I will be mind blown if one of these teams wins by 10 or more points. And that would be considered a blowout in this matchup. Even when Thumper, we said it on the Mega Live episode, he goes, even when they came to Brookings 2 years ago and we kicked their snot in and it was just a blowout, the final score was 27-17. And even when we killed Easton Stick and them in 2016 in Brookings and smashed them and it was terrible, it ended up being like 36-24. So I guess that's barely over 10 points, but it's just not going to be the type of thing where it's a big blowout. And that goes way away from Zach's question. Lowest scoring national championship since 2017. I do not think so. I think you're going to at least get into the low 20s for one of these teams for sure. And,
I think both.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to see the lowest scoring championship anyways, because some of these offensive players are pretty fun to watch. Tucker Kraft and Merrick Williams.
Hey, watching defensive games is so boring.
Hey,
I mean, did you watch the playoffs this weekend? The FCS ones? Give me that.
That was awesome.
And people are like, oh, their defenses are so bad. No, it's just they also have really good offenses. This happens. This is what I want to see. Who cares about defense? Just let's sling the ball. Let's have a good time. Let the best team win.
Yep, absolutely.
They're so entertaining.
It would be interesting if you took NDSU's exact scenario here. Exact scenario. The roster and everything is exactly the same. Injuries, portal, all of it. And you just had Trey Lance and then Mark Gronowski on the other side. How much perspective would change of this game? In terms of not like, NDSU will win now, just the scoring, how many points will be in the game, how the game plan will go. I mean, it would just change.
I think it'd be huge because I just don't think Bison Nation and all of the other pundits have a lot of faith in Miller just because of literally the last game's performance. And it's just been a different quarterback play that we've seen NDSU have in recent years. But again, he won a national title. It's not like he's a bum. He can win a national title, and he's been pretty damn effective for most of his career. But yeah, I think that Incarnate Word game is just haunting over everyone's betting. I mean, I've talked to so many people, and they're like, "Oh, it's going to be SDSU by 100." And maybe they're also leaning too much into that Montana State game as well. But yeah, no, I think it's going to be a fun game. I hope it's not a lot of 3-and-outs. Though. I'll be so bored. I'll be drinking so much. I want to see something. It can't
be worse than the Montana State NDSU game last year. You guys were by third. I was having a good time, but third quarter, our whole row was like, "Dude, this is
stop." I didn't pay attention to the game. I was mocking. I was mocking some Montana State people in front of me. Going, "This is why," because of course there was a linebacker playing quarterback.
Yeah,
and once he went in, I went, "Ooh, this isn't good." Well, he's not a linebacker. He was benched because a linebacker took over the quarterback spot with Troy Anderson.
NFL linebacker.
Now he's a fantastic linebacker, fantastic athlete. But once he stepped on the field, I went, oh, now Montana State really has no shot to move this damn ball.
Yeah, that changed the whole perspective.
That was a boring game too.
For sure. Hopefully it's exciting. Speaking of excitement, it was exciting, especially for the FCS and SDSU fans, to watch NDSU choke that game away early this year. Brandon Wolf says, after jumping out to a 21-7 lead at halftime in Fargo, did NDSU intentionally lose the game due to the weight of the rock and another FCS championship trophy breaking the case again? And then he writes, just a jack jab. So he's just jabbing. But the reason I put this in the Big 7 is not because obviously NDSU didn't intentionally lose.
Yes, they did. And I'll tell you why.
Because they want to get them when it matters?
No, because they wanted to make it seem like SDSU figured out this amazing game plan on how to beat them, when in reality, it was NDSU who completely shut down the capabilities of their offense. That's all it was, and they stopped playing defense. So they're like, we want the Jackrabbits to have a lot of confidence. We know we're going to play them because we know it's not going to be regional. 5 of the last 6 years, SDSU's been on the other side of the bracket anyway. The committee wants it to happen, so it's going to happen this year. So we want them to have the 1 seed to guarantee they don't have to go on the road and lose. Because we know we're going to get to Frisco.
Dude, for you folks not watching on YouTube, you just missed Kylor take off his Jackrabbit hat, and he put on a little tinfoil hat, kind of like in a cone shape. And
it's that raccoon hat off of the newer Dukes of Hazzard.
Just some conspiracy theory craziness coming from Mr.
That's
Neal.
accurate. I got texts from insiders.
He's got
Taco King has sent me some things.
Yeah, Brian Thompson, the man. Kylor, the reason, despite your conspiracy hopes, the reason I included this question is because talk to me from your perspective of the mental psyche of these teams. You can say some simple things. The teams hate each other. They obviously know it's for all the marbles. But here's the reality is the Jackrabbits have beat NDSU 3 straight years. And before that, it was an Adam Cofield 4th-and-1 touchdown run at the end of the game to beat SDSU barely.
Yeah.
The Rabbits have had the Bison's number.
Well,
so they've never intentionally lost, but is it just going to be like the final crowning moment of SDSU totally taking over this rivalry from playoffs to regular season? Or do you think there's mental psyche that helps NDSU? I think this mattered in 2017, James Madison. I think those NDSU players had such we lost in 2016. This is the team that took it away from us, and we're coming here to take it back. I think that played a factor as James Madison made uncharacteristic mistakes and maybe mentally didn't prep and coach as well. Some James Madison fans were upset about. Could we see that on the other side here, or does the mental psyche not matter? What are your thoughts?
So the fun thing about this game is because in Frisco, I think most teams are already kind of mentally defeated by the time they get there. They may not want to admit it. They may not want to show it, but you're playing NDSU, the most powerful program in FCS history in Frisco that they have maintained their home base. I mean, you pull up, you see all of the tailgating rigs. It is NDSU's home down there. This SDSU team is not going to be psyched out. But I also don't think NDSU is going to be psyched out because SDSU has won the last 3 times. Because like you have said multiple times, and I've said it, NDSU doesn't care about the regular season as much as the postseason. They have always beat them when it matters. Now, I don't think SDSU has ever been as good as they are now.
Yeah,
they've kind of been building into something
better
extremely special. The last 5 years, we've kind of seen them take a giant step forward. And now they are kind of that like Georgia to Alabama. Maybe we're seeing a handoff live, which is kind of fun. But I don't think Psyche is going to play a factor on any of these teams besides their rivals. They don't like each other. NDSU wants to beat the piss out of them in Frisco, so then they can say, haha, you still have never won anything. And SDSU wants to go, no, give us that damn torch. This is our time now. But I don't think it's any other mental fortitude like, oh, we're a little nervous because they beat us the last 3 times, or, hey, we're extra confident because we beat you the last 3 times. I think this is just 2 teams, and the mentality of it is just, we want to beat the shit out of you. We do not want you to have the title, come back to the Dakotas, come back to Canada South. We want it. So I don't think there's going to be any weird psyche games besides 2 amped up teams, 2 amped up fan bases, putting it all out on the line.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be loud. It's going to be, that marker game is crazy in person up in the normal cold Dakotas. This is just going to be absolutely insane. Kylor, last one here at the Big 7. Jason Plotkin wants to know, one of our best fans, SoCon officiating crew, how does this impact the game? So I'll be very curious how that actually has some impacts in terms of, I like when officials let teams play a little bit. I'm definitely more of a fan of that. Don't try to control the game. Let some receivers and cornerbacks be a little physical with each other. And I think Missouri Valley refs, besides targeting, which they're terrible at, and maybe that's just all crews, they do let players play. So SDSU, NDSU players might be prepping, or they might be thinking from the regular season, hey, we can get away with a lot more than we're used to. I'm not sure how SoCon referees officiate specifically, Jason, but let me say this. Bill Belichick is well known for prepping for a week's game by studying the officiating crew and their tendencies and adjusting players on the offensive line, how they block, small little ways towards how officiating crews operate. Now, you can't change your whole psyche and you can't change your habits, but there are small tweaks you can make that might give you a little bit of an edge. So ultimately, my opinion on this question is kind of like, this is coaching. This is coaching. This is preparation. Know the head official. Know the SoCon officiating crew. How do they normally operate? And then make sure your players are in the loop of They call a lot of holdings on every single stretch play. They're constantly looking for it. You better have good technique, good formation. That's my overall opinion on it. I think it's going to impact the game equally because both teams are used to Valley refs. It's not like there's some sort of big difference. Kylor, you're more of the factual kind of guy when these questions pop up. I'm more like maybe an emotional human. What do you think on this one?
I don't think it has any impact. I mean, we hear it from the SoCon fans. Kevin Marshall. He's when it was announced SoCon officiating crew was going to be here. He's like, "Oh, good God, they're the worst." We hear it from CA fans. CA officials are the worst. We hear it from Big Sky fans. Big Sky officials are the worst. Every official is the worst.
Not when you win. When they win, they called a fair game, and it was overall there were some bad calls, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah. I just think it's another officiating game. You're going to have some bad to mediocre calls. You're going to have a lot of good calls. It is a fast-paced game. You don't get all the camera angles. I don't see how this is going to impact the game at all. The good news is you don't have a high school ref out there. You have a Division I conference, officiating crew. They're going to do the best that they can. If there's bad calls, there's bad calls. That's a part of football, unfortunately, even though I don't like them either. It happens to the best of us. I don't think it affects this game at all.
I hope it doesn't, because what we want is the teams to both be healthy. We want the players to play good quality football. We want the refs to be involved as little as possible.
I want both teams to look like the worst teams that have ever played. So it's an entertaining game. I can point and laugh and have a good time.
You will have a good time no matter what, because I'll be sitting there next to you and it'll be fun. And we'll have our bellies full from some tacos prior to the game, probably.
Have we decided where we're going to eat tacos or what we're going to do? So I'm not doing Taco Bell.
What we did last year was pretty legit. I got a few local joints that my buddy Brian has talked to me about. So we've definitely got some options. We're not doing Taco Bell. We won't go that route. Good. But before we get too deep into tacos, we might as well kick off Thompson's Taco Bets.
It's time to put your money where your mouth is. And if you're right, put some tacos in there too. This is Thompson's Taco Bets.
All right, Kylor, Thompson's Taco Bets here. The question that was asked here was from Dustin Helton, and he said, what's the over-under on the length of time this game takes? Both are run heavy. Will this make a quicker natty than average? A quicker natty than average. Holy crap, I can't even talk. So Mr. Dustin Helton, the Rev, wants to know, we're talking about game time. So I figured I would look at, of course, when's our kickoff. We got 1 o'clock Central for you folks who aren't paying attention. And I set the over-under for the game will officially end where it hits 0, the fireworks go off, somebody's won, 4:27 p.m. Central. So that means total from kickoff to the end of the game, it would be 3 hours, 27 minutes of the entirety of the game. So, Kylor, what do you think? You think it's going to be over or under that when we hit 0?
It definitely will not be that 2016 Eastern NDSU game that took 8 years.
Too long.
So the game's at 1. So you're saying 3 hours and 27 minutes to the dot. Now,
3 hours, 27 minutes.
Are you saying the game starts at 1 o'clock perfectly?
So, yeah, it's probably kicking off at 1:05. I did think about that. I originally had this put at 4:17, and I was like, I'm going to bump it up 10 minutes because ESPN will be out there. And
halftime performances are sometimes a little extra long on accident.
So I think we still have the standard 20 minutes.
Yeah, but sometimes it lingers.
Football. Yeah. So, what do you think? I personally, I'll say
no. I'll go.
You're gonna go? All right, go.
I'll go under. I think the last few games have not seemed that long. I think 3 hours and 27 minutes is actually a fairly long time for this kind of a game. I think it'll actually be over probably by what you were thinking, 4:17, 4:12. So, yeah, give me the under.
I think the game's going to be so close that right before halftime is going to matter in terms of could we get a field goal?
Timeouts.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the timeout, pushing it just a little bit, and I'm going to go for the over there. We'll have to see what Mr. Jamie Williams picks.
You think there's going to be first downs in this game?
Well, then you got a lot of punting then. But if you go 3 and out, that could extend this sucker out too. At least you get some South Dakota State drives of 7 minutes or something. We might be looking okay. So, All right, for Thompson's Taco Bet, then we'll end it there. We got a little bit of disagreement. We'll see how long that game lasts, and that will roll us right into. Oh, wait, Let me try that again. I'm usually pretty quick on this. Quick being the key word. Well, Thompson's Taco Bet, over or under? We'll have to see how it plays out, Kylor Neal. Hopefully the game's not too quick, like our quick hit questions of the week.
Just because your question is answered quickly doesn't mean we don't care. These are the quick hit questions of the week.
That was
impressive. That was impressive.
Much,
I applaud you, sir.
Much smoother transition than just stumbling through my words.
That's written in bold letters on his whiteboard that you guys can't see.
Just had it right behind the computer.
He worked on that all. That's the reason why this podcast has been postponed in a few weeks. Matt has been literally working on that line for at least a week and a half now.
Just wanted the quick hit question transition to be flawless, and I still butchered it a little bit. Mitch Fargan gets us going there, Kylor. He's got a few questions here. He wants to know what will the attendance be like down there in Toyota Stadium, my man?
Yeah, this is going to be probably one of the better attended games. I mean, it was a fantastic game last year. Let's see there's about 18 and 5 change. I know the capacity says 20,000. It's not true. I do think there's going to be a lot of standing room only. I think it's going to be about as much as they can fit in, probably closer to 19 over anything. But they did get rid of a few, 1,000 seats from when it was a few years back. So probably 18-8. It'll be a little bit like the Montana State game last year. Montana State did bring in a lot of fans.
Yep. I think it'll feel like more James Madison NDSU in 2017, where when I looked up and I was looking at the back of standing room, like there was like 2 rows of people like amongst standing all along the rails. And Eastern Washington and NDSU and Montana State NDSU, and of course we had the COVID year stuff. When I looked up there, I'm like, there are a few spots open, or at least it looked like there was a little bit of parting the seas. I'm telling you, man, 2017 JMU NDSU, that place was freaking packed.
Yeah,
and I think you're going to be on that
when they
trajectory.
had 2,000 extra spots available.
That's true.
So I mean, that's where it is. Ever since then, I mean, the NDSU Montana State, it was about as sold out as you can get.
Yeah.
James Madison NDSU in 2019 was literally 50 tickets different from Eastern James Madison, like that game. So yeah, I mean, it's just going to be 18-8, 8-3, whatever. Probably 300 tickets of just standing room only.
Right.
It may feel like there's more, but there's probably not.
Any Rabbit fan or Bison fan for the chance to, even if you can get your foot in the door, to storm the field against your rival is worth anything if you have to stand for 3.5 hours. So you're not going to care at that point.
Yeah.
Great question here. Kendall Bryce wants to know, is the Dakota Marker Trophy traveling to Frisco?
Should, though.
It should at least go. Like, just bring it to the stadium. You don't have
just for bragging purposes. Like, hey, suckers.
We've got it. ESPN could show it. Like, it should at least travel there. Of course, if SDSU were to lose, NDSU doesn't get to take it. But, like, they should bring it down.
Yeah.
Bring it down there. Maybe, hey, you never know. Would Coach Stig, some of them be like, let's just have this around us the whole time. Be like, see, this sucker's ours.
Yeah. They should bring it to class. They should bring it to Old Country Buffet, Cracker Barrel.
Oh, that's good. Jason Blackett wants to know, this was a pretty cool question. He said, in light of Southwest Airlines issues in recent weeks, which one player or key to the game would you be most nervous about if NDSU or SDSU were to lose that item along the way? So what's a key player? Let's not say quarterback. What's a key player that might, we're not cheering for injuries here. We're not hoping for injuries. Nobody wants that. That would be disgusting.
Yeah.
But if somebody were to go down that's not a quarterback, what would feel pretty harmful to either side of the ball, Kylor?
Let's see. I think, again, it's a little bit of a cop-out, but Isaiah Davis for South Dakota State. And then I think NDSU, you got to go with that beast, red-headed monster of a man.
Cody Mauk on the left side.
Who came into the program, who looked like a little boy, and then at the end of his career looks like he ate that little boy. The gap in his tooth has gotten bigger. He's gotten meaner. I feel like he's just a factor. He's almost like the mascot of the team and the intensity of the team. So that's who I'm going with.
Yeah, Cody Malk would be a big
Yeah.
loss, but we don't want any injuries.
No,
We want
no.
everybody to be healthy all the way through. Mitch Fargan here again wants to know over under Cam Miller passes. Mitch, just to go through this one quick, kind of based off of what I said of the statistics, the last 2 times Cam Miller started against South Dakota State, easily going to throw over 10 passes and is going to have to actually win this game. Now, you didn't specify completions or not, and even if it was completions based off of the last 2 games, I'd say over
passes.
Yeah,
Over
I'd say,
20 passes.
Yeah, I think he's going to throw at least 20 to 23 passes in this one. So, what do you think, Kylor? Are we ever going to get a moment of silence? Will the stadium ever be quiet with all these fans attending? Now, that one was, I hate to keep going back to NDSU James Madison 2017, but the game was so close the whole time. As soon as it flipped defensively, the stadium was just loud as crap.
Right.
You expect the same thing?
Yeah, this is going to be a loud game. Just because of, again, the 2 teams that are there. It's not like SDSU is this massive fan base, but they are playing North Dakota State, right? They are playing their team that they've wanted to beat, and they continue to beat these last few years. This is a rivalry game. We haven't had a rivalry game in the championship for a very long time. I don't even know if we have had one.
Boy, maybe could you count CAA? Was it, who did Richmond play again? Villanova, I believe. Did they? No. Villanova won that year after. I thought there was a CAA
played
matchup.
Back, so it was like both played Montana.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So.
So I don't know if that's actually a fun one. We should look that up because I don't know if there's ever been a rivalry game. I'm sure there has been maybe one,
right?
Maybe in some of those SoCon time periods, but
yeah, we need to look that up, man.
Because I know James Madison and NDSU were like, they're kind of our rival, but it's different. It's not a true. This is not South Dakota State or versus North Dakota State and James Madison and NDSU. So yeah, the stadium will be quiet though. I kind of hope that maybe we can give a room of silence for Mike Leach. Again, he was not an FCS guy, but for such a huge football moment, maybe we can have that. But yeah, there's probably going to be a quiet section during the national anthem, and then after that, probably not too much until the game's over.
Not at all. And if you're watching on YouTube, I spelled quiet as quit or quite. So that's good.
Will the stadium ever be quite with all these fans?
Quite with all these fans attending. So see, you miss out if you're not subscribed on YouTube. Shameless plug. Scott, Mr. Scott. Oh, he wore a UND jersey for us last year for charity. I wore my SDSU sweater. Do I have to get down to the first row early to jump over the wall into the field? Scott, you know this for Frisco. Absolutely.
Yep.
If you want to get on the field as quick as possible, I'm a big fan of jumping behind the coach on ESPN to make an appearance. So, yep, you better get down there. So, if the game is wrapped up within the last few minutes, if you're a Bunnies fan, Bison fan, make sure you start making your way down the stairwell. Security will say don't jump. They don't stop you. So just jump on over. Kylor, what do you think? Over under on total tacos eaten by the admins over the weekend. Tim Rask wants to know.
I mean, what's the number?
Okay.
Because here's the big thing.
In one
I'm not a
sitting,
big taco guy.
I would say 51 in one sitting. This is Chris, Jamie, Kylor, me. This is 4 people.
Under
51 tacos. Think we're under that?
I'm only gonna have 2 to 3.
Oh, okay. I guess it depends on the style of taco. If we get the smile, okay, I'd cut that in half then. All right.
I'm just not a big taco guy in general. If it's big or small, I'm not a big taco guy. I'll probably have 2 to 3, but even if they're street tacos, probably just 2 to 3 the whole weekend.
Just keep it
so
simple.
If you guys can have the other 50 between just 3 of you, then more power to you. But I will not be contributing that much to my taco eating ability.
I think if we went to Taco Bell, I could get us to 50, but then I'd pay for it an hour later. So
you would not be going to the game. Yeah,
no.
I'm going to say 20. Well, Jamie probably is going to hear this, and no matter what, he's going to go, I can do it. So give me 32.
32. All right, 32 there, Tim. Mitch Fargan writes, after Cam Miller loses or wins this championship game, will NDSU replace him as a starting QB next year? Also, he asked some questions about Entz riding Kleiman's recruiting coattails. Miller's the guy, man. If I keep saying the same thing, if Cole Payton, who's very, very pumped up and will contribute throughout the game and has all year in the running game, if he could pass much better as same level of Miller, he probably already has a chance to take him over. So clearly he needs to develop more as a passer. Cam Miller's the guy. And here's the thing. NDSU football players love playing for Cam Miller. He might not be the guy that we are seeing for NFL talent, but it is well known in that NDSU locker room that these guys like going to battle for Cam Miller. They love his toughness, his ferociousness, how much he cares about being a team player. He's everything from a leadership standpoint. So no, he's going to go into his senior year. He's going to play next year. And I hate the whole Entz riding Kleiman's coattails thing. And the reason is because I heard that junk for Kleiman every single year after bowl. And then once Kleiman left, all the Bison fans go, well, Entz, you know, he's nothing like Kleiman and Bull. Oh, so now we had Kleiman and Bull together.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The next coach will get hated on by Bison fans, and they'll say, oh, it's nothing like Entz, Kleiman, and Bull. It's like, come on. The guys won a national championship. Even if we lose on Sunday, guys, most coaches get an extension for getting a team to a natty. So,
or having a winning record, or like some coaches we've seen, you get an extension for going 4-7.
That's it.
Northern Colorado.
Great coaching hires being made around that department. Kylor, Bruce Edmiston off to the FBS with Jacksonville State. Can he stream the game through the internet from Ecuador? Oh my
Bruce,
goodness.
You're going to Ecuador?
That's
awesome. I thought you were like, I guess it's colder because, you know, he's always in like Colorado and stuff. He travels a lot. You know, he's living the good life. But of course, it's winter, so that makes sense. Man, Ecuador, you'll have to tell us how that is. I've never been there.
He'll be down in South America.
Yeah.
Wow. He's gonna be way down there.
I mean, you should be able to stream it if it's on ABC. So I mean, there's an ABC app. So as long as you already pay for some type of TV subscription, you'll be able to. What, you got to look it up on a map? You don't know where it is?
Oh, I'm terrible at geography.
That Dakota.
Look at that. That's below North America. Look at that. He's 2 countries down. Colombia, Peru. Man, Peru's gonna be way.
Where'd you think it was? Before you looked it up, where'd you think it was?
I didn't know South America, but I would have guessed like in the middle of it or something. I didn't know it was on the coastline.
But, okay.
Yeah.
At least Brazil takes up most of the middle. So.
Yep. Takes up most of the middle of Europe, I think.
But yeah, there should be an app, and as long as you pay for a TV subscription, or like I don't know if you have DirecTV, Fubo, or whatever it is, you should just be able to log in with your current TV subscription and stream it. Or there's other illegal ways where you'll have to keep hitting that block up popper. We are not going to say who the illegal sites are, but you don't do it around your family or kids because you may see something. Or they may see something that they don't want to see if you're illegally streaming it. So
the advertisements are not edited throughout those websites.
But yeah, just download like the AB. I'm sure there's an ABC's app.
Oh yeah, for sure. Mitch Fargan here wants to know, what is the best barbecue in Texas? Kylor, this is all you, man. You live there. You're in the heart of it.
This is so hard because the good barbecue is the good barbecue. I mean, I don't notice a giant difference if you're all having the good, best barbecue. Like up in the Dallas area, I like Hard 8 a lot. Down here, I like the Pit Room. Killian's is really good. And then down in, Austin and stuff, you have Franklin's and all that. But I would say the best barbecue in all the land is run out of Lexington. This little old lady who runs Snow's Barbecue.
Snow's Barbecue.
So she's also featured on a Netflix show. But the reason why I knew about her even before we moved to Texas, my wife's family is originally from Lexington. And when they were a kid, she was still running this shop. She's like 95 years old.
Jeepers.
Still wakes up every morning. I mean, she's got this giant mop. So it's on this cool barbecue show. They feature her, but Snow's Barbecue. There's also a place probably no one's heard of. It's called No Teeth Barbecue. Because you don't need your teeth.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, go with Snow's Barbecue in Lexington.
That is awesome. Well, I'm sure we're going to be hitting a barbecue place. We always do when we're down there.
Yeah.
Boy, this question is just phenomenal. From some gentlemen we'll be spending time with down in Frisco, Texas. Do your heart and head agree on the eventual champion, or does your heart favor one team and your head says another? Holy moly. Well, I guess this one really applies to myself as a Bison fan.
This is going to give up the answer.
Yeah, the problem is we're doing pick'ems down in Frisco on a live thing. What I will just say is that I don't know where my heart and head are resting right now. And
You
even
know
if I
where
wasn't,
your heart's resting.
oh, the heart.
You don't know where your head's resting.
That's the thing. Yep. I'm feeling, yeah, it's weird. I don't know.
I know
weird.
where both are resting.
Oh, Kyler's been on the Jackrabbit train and more confidence than anybody this all season. So this won't give away Kyler's prediction.
Well, not all season. The first 5 weeks, I said
You
they
had a
would
few
lose
questions.
in Bozeman or Missoula.
That's true.
But if they were in Brookings, they would, go to Frisco. But I said they're going to travel to one of the Montanas, and I don't have faith they'll win in one of the Montanas.
Yep. And
ever since that NDSU game, it's Jackrabbit.
And we'll see how it plays out. Our awesome FCS poll gentleman also asked, who is storming the field first, Matt, Kylor, or Jamie?
It depends on who wins.
Yeah, here's the thing. If NDSU wins,
Matt can't do it early.
Nope, nobody beats me down there if NDSU wins. I am prepped and ready. But if NDSU loses, I will not be going on the field. It's just a thing of respect, too. It's like your team lost. I'm not going to even stroll down there. I'll sit in the stands. I'll watch SDSU take their trophy. I'll be a good sport about it. But I'm curious, Kylor, you or Jamie, because Chris went out on the field with me last year. He jumped down. And
we just came a little later.
Okay, gotcha. So you guys will make your way down there probably no matter what? Or what are you thinking?
Probably will go down no matter what, unless you're the only guy up at Rainbow Road.
I'll
feel a little bit bad, and maybe I'll stick around. But yeah, we all made it down there. We just waited till all the NDSU fans were down there first. So then we weren't like imposing on their celebration because, of course, we were wearing different gear.
Right.
But yeah, we eventually made it our way. And then some people look at me and go, Eastern Washington, you're not even here. How the hell did you get on the field? And I was just going because Eric Berry won the Walter Payton. I'm here for Eric Berry, baby.
Yeah. especially down in the field. Yeah. No, if NDSU loses, I'll sit there with Jordan Finkston and I'll let SDSU and the other folks have their fun. I've been down there before. It's an amazing moment. It'll be cool no matter what. So, all right, Kylor, that does bring us to the end of quick hits, and there's no transition into a playoff pick'em because we are rolling right out this episode because we will be doing a live stream episode in Frisco. Myself, Kylor, Chris, Jamie, right down there. We'll record it on Saturday and release it out for the FCS world to get a good college game day feel. Might have some shots as we make our predictions. It's going to be a fun episode to do. So make sure that you are subscribed to the FCS Fans Nation podcast on Apple, Spotify, especially YouTube for this one. This one's going to YouTube. It's not going to Apple. It's not going to Spotify. So if you're not subscribed on YouTube and you want to watch a actual college game day feel while you prepare to watch the national championship, not from the junk of ESPN and others who don't care about us, from actual FCS fans, make sure you're subscribed. Now, when it comes to Frisco, myself, Kylor, Jamie, Chris, we are rolling in, mostly all of us, on Friday afternoon, evening-ish. We'll be out on Monday. Make sure that you give our Twitter of FCS Fans Nation a follow, or if you're watching on YouTube now, you'll see the @Matt Frazee Twitter tag. You'll see Kylor Neal. I'm about to tweet this out, but make sure you're following our personal Twitters as well, even if it's for just this week, so you guys can know where we're at, because we're going to be tweeting out constantly the food we're eating, the restaurants we're at, the top golf places we might be swinging clubs at, just where we're going to be. So if you want to be involved with us and meet up with us, that is the best part of Frisco. The best part of Frisco is the fact that we see so many of you guys walk up to us, say, I listen to the podcast, I drive a truck across the country, I'm a school teacher.
Watch you guys.
They
don't care about the game.
Nope,
People
they're not there for the game.
All around the country just to hang out with us. It is pretty impressive.
It is so cool. And if you guys follow us on our pages, you know every year I do a recap video of our trip down to Frisco, a 3-4 minute edited video. And I always put, if you walk up to us and talk to us about you watch the podcast, we take a picture with you and I make sure you and that photo and your name is in the video. So we want to get as many fans as possible throughout it. We're excited to eat a ton of good food, drink a lot of good beer, and just meet up with so many people. The Jackrabbit Illustrated guys will be down there. Our podcast guys will be down there. Waxson, Will Seiler, the Rev's going to be down there. You're going to have Brandon Owens from Cocky Nation. You're going to have so much representation of different fan bases. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Kylor, last chance to dance, baby. Are you excited? Ready? I'm ready to see you in person on Friday. Give you that big hug I always do.
Nope, I am not excited. This is the least favorite weekend of all year.
Oh, it's
hate
terrible.
hate seeing your face. You suck at hugging.
That's because I'm all skeleton. I'm all bone.
Well, I am not. Every year I get a little bit thicker around the waist just to make sure, it warms you up, buddy.
It does.
So,
Well,
no, I'm super excited. It'll be fun to see you guys all. Because also last year I didn't even get in until the day after all of you guys.
Yeah.
So I'll be there pretty much. I think only a few people are coming in Thursday. So I'll be there the whole time. It'll be fun.
Awesome. Looking forward to it, guys. Make sure you give us a follow so we can see you down there. And ladies and gentlemen, this will end our second to last episode of the season for non-live streams, as we are excited to tiptoe down to Frisco. We will see all of you in the warm weather of Texas, and we will see you guys in Frisco. Boom.
Thank you for listening to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast on your preferred listening platform, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Google, or even YouTube. And make sure to follow our FCS Fans Nation social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you for listening to the premier podcast for FCS football. Boom.
Can you just use it while it's plugged in though?
Nope.
No. Oh, okay.
Here.